He's the elephant in the room. He takes the air out of the room. He is Buddy Cianci, and he is here tonight. He has changed the dynamic of the 2014 election season, no doubt, with his, I'd say, still predictable decision to run for mayor. Some are just completely aghast and surprised, and some are celebrating it as if it's the second coming. In this case, it would be the third coming, right? So Buddy Cianci is in studio tonight for this program. So let us go to the rundown because we've got a lot to do on Dan York's State of Mind, and I thank you so much for watching this evening. A short rundown because I want to take some quality time with the former mayor and broadcaster on leave. Yeah, that's how many years. It's unbelievable. Today was a very solemn day, don't you think? The president taught us that he has one. I didn't know that. And he's back. No, not Buddy, but Bob. Yes, real quick, let's dive in and offer a couple of comments so that you can get a little perspective from me and think about it. And then, of course, feedback on your state of mind in our final segment this evening. 13 years ago. I mean, you measure it in all sorts of ways, right? Here was some of the scene from New York today.
Families gathered at the World Trade Center for a moment of silence to mark the exact time 13 years ago the 9/11 terror attacks began. Relatives who lost loved ones read the long list of names of the victims.
We love you, we miss you, and not a day goes by that we don't think of you.
President Obama attended a ceremony at the Pentagon Memorial.
13 years after small and hateful minds conspired to break us, America stands tall and America stands proud.
And relatives of victims aboard United Flight 93 gathered at the crash site in Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
You know, some of these years have gone by and you just kind of try to ignore it, and then there are years that just catch you. This year caught me for some reason, and I spent a lot of time thinking about it. Shed a few tears this morning too. Lost people from my high school that I knew that were in the building. Father Michael Judge, the famous first victim, was a family priest for us in New Jersey prior to his stint as the chaplain for the firefighters in New York. There's a lot of personal stories, and I didn't lose anybody in my family, so I can't claim to be mourning from that kind of a deep perspective. But we all have mourned, and we're all angry, and we're all still trying to figure out where we go from here. Seems like a long time ago, and only yesterday. God bless all the victims, and God bless his country. As we move forward to the next item, ironically, last night the president talked about ISIL, which I guess is a super premium terrorist group, Al-Qaeda +++. Here's what he had to say.
Made it clear that we will hunt down terrorists who threaten our country wherever they are. That means I will not hesitate to take action against ISIL in Syria as well as Iraq. This is a core principle of my presidency. If you threaten America, you will find no safe haven.
Yeah, I was happy to hear some powerful language, but I didn't know he had that core principle. Especially since last week, he was still being pretty obstinate about any kind of cross-the-border into Syria intervention via air or ground. So the core principle, that's new on me, but I don't know, do you give the president a pass if he puts a good plan together here? I'd say he ought to just keep listening to the generals who seem to be moving him in the better direction. But comparing it to Somalia and Yemen is nothing to compare it to, because guess what? We have a fledgling operation there. We hit and miss when we can and when we want to, and they're hotbeds for terrorism. Mr. President, you should know that. And finally, locally here today, he's back. Here's the headline. Moderate Party has a new candidate for governor in Robert J. Healy. Yes, the cool moose himself, who had a decision to make this year as to whether he was going to run for lieutenant governor. He has previously run for governor 3 times in the 90s. Most recently, a handful of stints trying to run for lieutenant governor with a mission to take no salary and to eliminate the position if he won. Well, he decided this year that, he was exhausted and there was no demand for him. But James Spooner, the man who is the Moderate Party designee. Remember, the Moderate Party started by Ken Block. He abandoned his own party to go run as a Republican and met his 10-point demise this past primary day on Tuesday. Anyway, Mr. Spooner is too ill to run. Best wishes to him. And he can, by law, designate someone else. He's designated Bob Healy. So Bob Healy, in full regalia, is ready to mount a run for governor. I spoke with him on the radio today.
I would show people how to live within their means. Will be no haircut or shave. I'm pretty firm with both my platform that I ran with in '94, which I still think should have been followed, and I think that change, just for the sake of change or to sway voters, is just wrong.
So he says it's going to be a discussion of being very tight with the money, but he's still going to keep the hair exactly where it is. I would consider this to be an interesting disruption in the governor's race. Probably hurts Alan Fung more than it does Gina Raimondo, and I haven't figured out by what percentage. But he'll be invited to the big debates because he is a longtime equity player in the political scene, and he could shake it up. How much? I got to still figure it out. Maybe you can figure it out. Let me know on your state of mind, or of course on the radio tomorrow, where you can hear the show weekdays noon to 3 on WPRO. When we come back, Buddy Cianci is in the house. He needs no introduction. So he finally said he was going to do it. I knew all along. I was predicting it. Not that I had any insight, but here was the headline that ran when he decided, yep. And of course, national attention, as it always seems to follow His Honor, the Buddy Cianci Show, the Honorable Mayor. Some say dishonorable. We'll talk to him about that. But here's the excerpt of what he had to say on the radio on that famous day now.
Today, I wish to share with you my personal plans for future public service. There are some of you who may say that this is an 11th hour decision, but I assure you it was not made rashly or in haste. Today, I submit to you my bid to bring fruition to the major urban program that was so auspiciously we began, my quest to cut the ribbon at both ends. Today, with a sense of humility, contrition, and confidence, I announce to you my candidacy for mayor of Providence.
All right, so welcome.
We are.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's very strange. We've known each other for quite some time now, and in different texts and different places.
Absolutely.
You are, people say, you know him really well. And I said, actually, no, he's an enigma to me. No matter how much time, how many cocktails we had in the old days, and working together.
Used to broadcast from City Hall.
We used to get after it. And we've gotten after it, and we've commiserated, and so
Yeah.
here we are in another chapter. But
And you
it's
know,
really
to
all
me-
about you, not about me. So let's talk
Okay,
about it.
All right. I think back to one of the most interesting memories I have of City Hall, and my participation in this day reminds me of it because you were talking about it earlier, and that's September 11th, back 13 years ago. And I remember a couple of stories, and I don't want to take the time away from your interview, but I remember going to New York with our fire and police, and I remember driving through New York right after this incident, and how eerie it was, how quiet it was, no one said anything. And I'll tell you listeners one interesting story. Right after that incident, right after that tragedy, the developer of the public safety complex came in. We were building it at the time. And he said, I got some bad news. I said, what's that? He said, the granite that we bought for the public safety complex in Providence, guess where it came from? I said, where? He said, Osama bin Laden's construction company. His family has a construction company in Raleigh. I said, you got to be kidding me. And so I said, well, you better get rid of it. And that, can you imagine, you couldn't spin that one any way you anyway, because we bought it. But those are some of the memories I had. I remember the police and fire in Providence, what they did down in New York, which was amazing.
It was
and
extraordinary.
they did great jobs. Okay, get to you. But I had to mention that.
So you had one speech in your left pocket, one speech in your right pocket.
Yep. Well, I
don't buy it.
Well, I didn't have speeches. I didn't have a speech that was written that would say I wasn't going to run. I had always contemplated running, thought about it, never made a decision. People were telling me I should run. People said, oh, you know, the city has made some changes, and I think maybe you could help out. But the fact of the matter is, when I went to that radio station, our radio station that night or that afternoon, I really hadn't fully made my mind up. And I made my mind up right at the last minute. I was leaning toward running. I had a speech written, but you know, you can always just get the speech and just say, look, I decided not to run for personal reasons or whatever. I wish the candidates luck. But I didn't do that because I felt the city needed some leadership, and I really love the city of Providence. That's why I decided to run.
Were you surprised the radio management let you go that long? All the way down to the wire? I was surprised.
No, they told me earlier that that whatever decision I made, because I saw them, I talked with Barbara and others, and they said that whatever I wanted to do would be fine, and they would support it. And they said, and I said, well, you know, I might want to come back, and they said that's great too. So we cleared up the galleries of all that, and the same with the television station.
So you lose your back?
Well, most likely. I mean, but I don't think I'm going to lose. But that spot will be open for some other person who would like to take it if I lose.
Good luck
I mean, if I win.
Good luck to whoever may be interested in that.
Right.
Let's talk about the competitive aspect of this right now. Jorge Elorza and Brett Smiley combined to beat Brett Solomon. Brett Smiley and Jorge Elorza combined to beat Michael Solomon in the primary. Had they not combined, they wouldn't have. Here's their strategy.
There's a very real threat that we could return to the old days in City Hall.
If Mike Solomon becomes the Democratic nominee, then there's a very real chance that Cianci would come back into City Hall, and there is no way that we can allow that to happen. Brett has put his love for the city above his desire to be mayor.
Got to beat Satan.
Well, the fact is, Brett Smiley pulled out of the race because he was polling at probably about 12 or 11 in our polling, not our internal polling, but polling we had had high.
Whatever, they combined, they beat Solomon.
By 1,000
and they were very
votes.
strong on the east side.
Yes.
Elorza, very strong.
That's true.
Can you penetrate the east side?
I think this is about vision, it's about leadership, and we haven't begun, well, we just begun our advertising campaign and got out on the road. And the receptions have been great. I just was looking at the telephone and the results of the first journal poll, which shows us substantially winning that poll. Now, I know they're not scientific, but we've done our own polling, and yes.
What journal poll are you talking about?
The one that just came over. You guys, I know you're taping now.
The WPRI poll? No, we don't have
No, the poll online for the journal.
That's not a poll. What are you,
Well,
Chris Young?
people-
Chris Young thinks that's a poll.
No, I'm hardly Chris Young.
Yeah, I know that.
But I can tell you that we have done polling. And, you know, today in politics, you can find out a lot of things about how people feel, the number of people who you poll, or going out and just talking to them. And I think that frankly, that certainly I can penetrate the east side, and certainly the south. My biggest support group, by the way, is from the Latino, the Black, and the African American population. And individuals who you wouldn't think I'd get support from, but it's the biggest support group I have. The East Side is a group that frankly, is a high turnout area. There's no question about that. About 28 to 30%, maybe a little less than that, will come out.
And they haven't made previously.
But the other side of the city votes 75%.
I get it, but they have not historically gone for the old regime type of candidate on the east side.
This is not about the past. It's not about building malls and helping to create water fire or fixing the Performing Arts Center or making the zoo one of the best in the country. It's not about that at all. What it's about is who's got the best vision for the future. That's what it's about, Dan. Who's got the ideas, and we got to talk about that.
You would have rather ran against Solomon, right?
No, that's not true at all. That is not true at all. You know, when you consider who you're going to run against,
wanted
number one, you've
Solomon
got.
to
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. It didn't really make a difference, and I'll tell you the strengths and weaknesses of each one of them. Okay, number one, Solomon had a great ground game, supposedly. He had a lot of the leadership of the city council with him, and those people make a difference. Elorza, on the other hand, is a fresh new face. But I think Elorza would make a great judge. I don't think he'd make a great mayor. And I think that when you figure it all out, the weaknesses and the strengths of the candidate really didn't make a difference. It's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of another. Right. We're ready for both of them, and we will be ready for this election.
Steve, can you throw up the pictures of both Elorza, Jorge Elorza, who will be here next week on Wednesday, by the way, and Mr. Harrop? Short question on the political strategies, then we'll talk issues in the next segment. This guy Harrop holds some cards. I don't know if it's 6%, 10%, 12%
Latest
in
poll
this
is
race.
about 8%, and if he gets out, I get 4, and Elorza gets 4.
Really?
Doesn't make a bit of difference.
Absolutely scientifically predictable.
Yeah, I'll show you.
You don't need him in the race. You don't need him in the race.
No, you don't. He can stay in the race, out of the race. He's not going to win the race, that's for sure. Anybody who wants to propose that the city of Providence go bankrupt, and the other candidate wants to propose a municipal income tax, I think that's get the 4. It's all over.
He says that's not necessarily true.
Would you like to see the tape?
Yeah.
Of him announcing? You've seen it?
Yeah,
Why don't you run that up
he's
there?
now suggesting.
He changed his mind, did he?
He's now
Little flip-flopping?
suggesting that that's not his interest. However, you'll have plenty of time to challenge him on that, and I'm sure you'll take that opportunity here, right? Let me come back and we'll talk some issues with the mayor, who is no doubt on his game.
A lot can change in a city after 12 years without leadership. When I left office, there was a $7 million surplus in Providence. People were working and buildings were...
So there you see the beginning of a commercial that Buddy Cianci is running right now, fresh out of the box as the real season starts here. You really are selling the idea that you went away and so did the momentum of the city, correct?
Yeah, I think that if you talk to people, they will tell you that, Dan. When I was mayor of the city of Providence, I think we had a very high self-esteem. Don't forget, people of the city of Providence elected me 6 times to be their mayor, and every time I got elected, there were always people who ran against me, except for one time. And I was able to say that the vision was being completed, and we had a vision. And think about it. We had lower crime rates, number one, or people felt safer, number one. We didn't have the kinds of stuff that's going on Federal Hill now, where people are getting killed and there's not riots, but fights all over the place. That came from no leadership. That came because the zoning board in the city of Providence decided that it would allow those types of activities, those new places, to happen up there. Wrong move. In addition to that, our unemployment is so high. We have a high unemployment. We have the 4th highest commercial tax rate in America. Those things didn't exist. When I was mayor, we did, I don't talk about the past, but we did do some exciting things. Build the Providence Place Mall. That was economic development. We were able to bring a lot of people into the down city to spend money with water fires, those kinds of things. That's economic development.
So give me short answers on how you improve public safety. What do you do?
In the city of Providence today, there are short police officers. You have to have a full complement of police officers, number one. I'll be issuing a position paper on public safety next week. That position paper, I'll give you a preview. It's going to talk about police reserves. It's going to talk about bringing back retired police officers to fill the gap right now. We're about 100 police officers or so down. And then we also, there's about, we're about 40 that, or about 100 that are eligible to retire. Imagine if those guys all said, and women, I think I'll retire. Now, they're eligible. Okay. We'd be depleted.
So you're going to retool the police department.
Yes.
Economic development. Superman building sits as a real boil on our you-know-whats right now. Yeah. What happens with that?
Well, I noticed that in your promo or your tag on your show, you have that building that's all lit up. It's not lit up now, it's dark. And it was allowed to be dark because previous mayors, mainly Cicilline, others, certainly Cicilline, they knew that lease was up there, and they knew it was coming up. Bank of America sold that building, they leased it for 10 years, and they had every intention of moving out. They should have made some movement to keep them there, or certainly planned to bring somebody in way before that lease expired. That's number one. What I think should happen in that building, I don't know if apartments should go in there. I don't know if the market is there. But I do know that that building is an icon, and it needs some help, and it needs the business community in this state to search for and go out and look for a one-user occupant, one user. Someone like a Fidelity, someone who has the requirement for that kind of space.
And does the city take a piece of equity as part of its investment?
You have to know what the deal is. But we were partners with the people at Providence Place Mall. We used tax incremental financing there. We were partners in just about every good business thing that came around, whether it was the Performing Arts Center, which is actually an economic development tool for the city of Providence. We were partners in so many of those things.
All right. So that's,
and you have to be part of it.
So you write in your book, I paraphrase, raise taxes early and blame it on the guy before you.
That's rhetoric. Our taxes are too high.
When you're writing that, were you thinking, wait a second, I'm going to run for this office. This may come back to haunt me.
Well, you know, that was advice to new mayors. I'm an older mayor. And if you're a new mayor, I guess you could take that advice. But people know me. I'm the most vetted candidate around. And
well, that's why I'm not going to the felon thing. People are waiting for the big felon question. Yeah. I mean, it's we've been there and we've done that. But although you get a little aggravated. You almost bit Sean Daly's head off the other night. I ran it last night.
He said,
you know, two-time felon, two-time felon, two-time felon. You get a little upset.
Well, Sean is a good reporter, and it's hardly breaking news that came about.
I don't have time for the clip, Steve, so don't worry about it. COLAs, they're going to try to run that right around your neck from the days early on. Pension costs skyrocketing, unfunded liabilities, big burden to the city. Your answer for that is?
Well, the answer to that is, when I was mayor, we funded that program 40%. Now, 12 years later, it's funded at 30%. I left office with a $7 million surplus. They had a $110 million deficit. As far as I'm concerned, when you talk about 6% COLAs, those were implemented and put on the books before I was mayor. That was implemented in 1989, and I didn't come back in office until 1991. And so people keep hanging that on me because they have nothing else to talk about except the past and all those kinds of things. But they can't. There's one thing they can't say: the city prospered under me, the unemployment was low under me, and we had activity and mission, and we had a vision in the city.
And the short answer on how you fix the unfunded pension liability is?
We funded it to 100% my last year, and I have a letter to prove it from the finance director.
Going forward, it's a big burden.
Yeah, but they have made some improvements as to the way you're supposed to finance that.
So
and if
keep on keeping on with the plan.
Yeah, you got to keep that on. And you know, there are other methods that you could have used. We could have used it years ago, but no more now. And that was we could have borrowed against that pension system and used the LIBOR rate and the arbitrage in order to make that dollars up. In other words, you could have borrowed money on the LIBOR rate.
So you think you can manage that?
You know, I think so.
Speaking of pensions,
yes,
it dawns on me, and some birdies whispered in my ear recently, that although you've been very disciplined about requesting your own pension when you were out of the job, because of dishonorable service, the city wouldn't give it to you. But day one, when you come back as mayor, you probably make an argument that your full pension is available to you.
Oh, I don't think so. I think that that's a,
Was
that's
that
a
motive?
story. Not at all. As a matter of fact, if you really want
Full
to
pension, full health benefits for life?
No, I have.
In your calculation?
I've done very well. No, because frankly, number one, I have great health care coverage with the radio station and TV station that I worked for.
Well, how long will that go if you're mayor?
As long as I'm on the station, but I'm not there now. But let me tell you about pensions.
Well, if you get elected, you're not going to be a
200
broadcast
No,
employee.
but if I got elected, I certainly would be entitled to health care benefits like every other employee.
Got
okay?
that.
Okay, fine. But my answer to that question is, look, I have no interest in collecting my pension. If I had, I would have put in for it 12 years ago or 13. I contributed $209,000 of my money to that pension system that's still sitting there. Okay, I'm entitled to that back. I never even asked for that.
And you'll never will?
Probably not, no. Because what for? I mean, the fact of the matter is that and you know what? I should challenge other people who run for office today. And they should know, I'm not taking a pension. I don't want a pension. I won't ask for a pension.
All right.
Let them give their pensions up.
Thanks for taking it. Come back a lot, okay?
I will.
And you'll meet with Mr. Alorza, won't you? Here?
Absolutely.
Right.
If he's willing to meet me to debate, I'd love to.
The conversation's on. Your state of mind next. Plenty to react to, certainly. Your state of mind, 228-1886. Email me or Facebook or tweet post. You know how that whole thing goes. Here's one. Let me see what this listener viewer is on. Great show today. Agree completely about the coverage Tuesday night about, Buddy Cianci, actually. Media way too engaged. He's a candidate. He's just a man, and he's just a candidate. But now that the season is on, he certainly is the elephant in the room and the star of 2014. We'll see you tomorrow at noon on the radio on WPRO. Good night.